Okay, welcome to another episode of NLP Upskill Your Life. It's great to be back with you guys again, Finton and Rich and myself, Mark. We're talking around how to upskill your life using NLP and various things that we've done through the years as well to help ourselves. So thanks a lot for joining us, guys.
Thanks very much, Mark.
Yeah, and look forward to you listening to us today.
Yeah.
So this week's chat is all about kind of resiliency and the will to live. Maybe against you could be in a football team or somewhere or a sport event, could be a couple of nil down, and then coming back from that to score to get the victory.
Yeah, so it's really about not giving up, isn't it? Really, yeah, because we all probably have times that things aren't going our way. Like it could be in work or it could be in sports or any scenario you can think of. So it's about being resilient and keeping up the momentum and knowing you'll get through it.
That's right. And it's also about having processes in place to help you deal with hard times, because hard times come to us all, difficult situations arise all of the time. So just being aware of the fact that this is going to happen and having certain processes in place to help you deal with them can make a big difference. One such example from my own experience is as a scout leader. We have on various occasions been hiking or camping. It could be on a campsite, it could be in the mountains, where a scenario comes where there's a big wind in the middle of the night, maybe a bit of a storm, and maybe tents get knocked down, things like that. And I've told a couple of stories already around that already. But one of the things that we have to put in place is an escape plan. What to do if things get so bad in the middle of the night that you can't stay in that campsite. It'd be dangerous. For example, on one particular occasion we were there and a lot of tents got knocked and there's a lot of rain fell. But we were very lucky. We were discussing that if it had been 1 or 2 degrees cooler, we would have had to have pulled out. So what is our plan in place to do that? And we came up with a very simple plan, which is what we do is we practice it every time we go out. Often unbeknownst to the scouts, they don't realize that what they're doing is practicing their escape plan. But the idea is that you have your rain gear, your boots inside. You sleep in what would be probably a tracksuit or something like that, something that's suitable to hike out in. You also, as regards to food, we would always have a breakfast ready for each morning. So, for example, on the last time, one of the last times we had a scenario where we had to, there was a rain, actually the rain came down before we got out of the tents. And there were some of the groups that had already arranged to cook cooked breakfast. What we had was we had some sandwiches packed. And of course, what we did was we said to them, okay, it's lashing rain out here. What you want to do is get your sandwiches into you, get your rain bags packed, make sure everything's okay, and then we'll pull out. So they did all of that without even leaving the tent. So these guys landed up out. They were ready for the weather. They were ready to go. They just had to take down the tent, then pack them up and carry them down with them. But they walked out on a full stomach. But the other groups ended up walking out on an empty stomach, And the thing about the mountains is, and so therefore there was no paths. You were basically on the side of a mountain. So it can be dangerous enough if you're looking at bad weather, which we were, and you're carrying a heavy pack. But if you're on an empty stomach, or on a full stomach, it makes such a big difference. So having processes in place helps you survive situations where maybe you might get stuck and just, what are we going to do? But knowing in advance what you might do can be a big help.
Yeah, it's very important to have a plan. It's very important to have a plan.
Absolutely. And how quick the weather changes in the mountains. So many years ago, I was up in the Brecons and dropped the guys off to go and do whatever they were doing, and waiting around for them to come round, replenish all their supplies and all that. But there was this young mother with her daughter, who's probably about 5 years old. It was a beautiful sunny day, but they were there in like summer clothes, so very light gear. But we knew there was going to be some bad weather coming in, and it had just actually started raining not too long before, a bit off in the distance. And they weren't very well prepared either. So she was asking, do you think it'd be right for us to walk out into the up onto the hill, up onto the mountain? Well, the advisable thing would be not to go out there, but ultimately that is your decision. You probably want to come back, be more prepared to be able to face that mountain, that challenge, rather than going up that mountain and having to put somebody else's life in danger from, say, the mountain rescue to come out, search and look for you.
Yeah, because that's a great examples there, lads. Thanks a lot, because there's another way for other people, you know, for just say interviews. We all kind of go for interviews from time to time, and you may not get the job, which I've had a lot of experiences of, you know. But a good way to kind of, it comes into planning as well. You know, don't give, like a lot of people would give up if they're going for a certain grade every now and then, not getting thrown back, and you're like, oh no, I've had it with this, you know. But then what you can do is kind of get some feedback off the people you went in the interview for. It's so important to maybe contact them and say, look, where did I fall down? What part of it was I not good of? To kind of have an understanding of where you've kind of fell back or fell down on, can be a great preparation for any other interview, even if it's a different interview you're going for in the future. That's what I found was a good way of doing that.
How have you got on from then, Mark? Got that feedback? How have you improved your weak points?
Yeah, well, I remember years back, I went for a job what I'm doing now, and I went for it first of all, and I did absolutely rubbish at the interview, you know. So I contacted the HR department, because I was working as a general worker at the time. So I did contact the person who interviewed me, and I did get some great feedback, you know, of way I could have presented better, and you know, like maybe the different answers, and more, I could have got more information on how the place works, you know, different, more information of the company, you know, and you know, do my homework better. And thankfully now I'm sitting here and I have the job that I went for. So so success, you know, it was success. So it's great for anybody that's listening to bear that in mind, you know. Don't give up. It could have been just a bad day, or could have been anything. So, you know, getting feedback is going to create a plan for yourself.
Definitely.
Absolutely, yeah. It's a very good point there.
Look, I ask you, Vincent.
Yeah.
So out on a sports pitch, and you may be, I don't know, say 3 or 4 goals down from your hurling.
Yeah.
If the team's ever started bickering and pointing fingers as to why one guy's failing, or maybe a couple of guys failing, how's the team dealt with that to say, look, this isn't useful, to turn that round and then make it more positive, make it more cohesive, so the team functions better?
Well, I have to say, actually, the hurling team I play with, I've only played with them now this year and last year. But actually, to be honest with you, that was the biggest thing that people noticed, was that there wasn't any of that. There was such great camaraderie amongst the team, and there still is, that it was easier for people to communicate. For example, you could have a scenario where someone just shouts at people, what did you do that for? Why are you doing this? Or get out of my way, or whatever it might be. And none of that is useful to a person. Like I played soccer with fellas, and we could be down and their head would drop. It would be good, talented footballers, but their head would drop and they'd be next to useless then to people. They would shout at people, give out to people. And what I've discovered is, like, I do a lot of shouting when I'm out, whether it's football or hurling, to people, but it's usually something useful. If it's not useful, then there's no point in shouting. So I might say to someone, okay, go in and support that other person, or go tackle that person, or because you might have 2 or 3 people tackling one person and then need a bit of support, or just to get in so that they can pass the ball to you, or that sort of thing. Or you might indicate to someone to move to a different position to receive a pass, for example. And that, I find, it tends to work quite well. As well as that, then when you have people communicating well, that quite often you don't even need to talk to them. There are some people that, some of the best footballers, particularly I played with down through the years, automatically know where to go. You know where to put the ball, and they know to be there. And then if you put in another person, put that ball in, someone else goes, why did you put it in there? And you go, because you should know to run into that place, or you know what I mean? That was the only open space. So, that's what you should be looking at. But that makes a big difference between the team being able to score from opportunities that that the opposition don't see coming, and not.
That's a great example. You just actually reminded me of something I read in a book recently. The way you kind of talk to people, and if you're working in a place and people are shouting at one of their bosses or shouting at each other, like there was this part of the book that I was reading, and there was a guy who was a janitor and he was doing a rubbish job, and everybody was pretty much slagging him and saying he's crap and a lot, and
Yeah.
basically the manager had a different way of looking at it, because she didn't want to she said, hang on, this isn't working by shouting him and giving out to him and all that. And because one day he did a particularly good job at cleaning the part of the office, wherever the case may be. And she went over and she praised him and says, well, that was a great job, like, well done. And then by getting that praise, it kind of, he got more enthusiastic and he got the job done better. And it improved the whole morale of the office, in this job. And it just shows you, like you said, Fintan, that, like, by shouting and roaring at people, it's not going to really solve the problem, but by seeing what they want and, can really, really help the situation. Did you ever find that yourself, Rich, in any scenario you've been through?
Yeah, it's always easier to start backbiting and bitching at people, for want of a better expression, and to turn that from a negative thing into a positive takes a little while. So one of my managers I used to have, team leader, a very, very good bloke, he would actually go around and pick litter up as well. So he'd start leading by example. And so seeing him do that would then encourage other people to do that kind of thing, to go, right, if he's doing that, it's not beneath me then to do that. So he was one of the most qualified, experienced people, one of the most respected people who could ever work with in that industry that I worked in at the time. So
that's a great example.
Yeah. So if you can see the managers or leaders doing all those quote unquote trivial stuff, then that shows that they're willing to step out of what their supposedly job role is to go and assist other people as well.
Yeah. Actually, that reminded me of something that happened to me last Sunday. So this day last week, we were hiking in the mountains up in Leitrim, and a beautiful place it was, absolutely. And what we were doing was, 2 of my friends are on committee, and what they had to do was they had been given grant money, and they had to go around a particular route, a waymarked route, and have a look, make sure the signs were in place and any work needed to be done on it, that the money would go towards this. So anyway, we were going around, and so I said, sure, look, it's a great way to spend the day, going hiking through the mountains in Leitrim. And anyway, as we were walking along the road, then somebody found something. So one of the guys picks it up, And one of the girls goes, "Oh, actually, I have a bag for that." So she took out a rubbish bag. And the next thing you know, we're all picking up rubbish, and I'm holding the bag. And we arrived back with a big bag full of rubbish. But the thing was, that entire route was now clear of rubbish. Whereas we could have walked along and ignored the rubbish, not taking it with us at all. And only for the fact that she had the bag, there was so much rubbish that we wouldn't have been able to bring it home, So, like that, one person leads by example, and others follow. Absolutely, yeah. And it's great to have that sort of leadership.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because when an organization's kind of falling apart is when you've got to kind of dance around the manager and wonder what that manager's going to be like that day. They're going to be a bit hot, they're going to be a bit cold. And then the team starts backbiting each other to get the approval of the manager.
Mm.
That's very true, yeah. And that does happen in organizations. I found that you tend to have, well, I suppose, I was going to say 3 levels, but really it's a sliding scale of managership or leadership. And what you have is ones who are absolutely excellent, who get the best out of their staff, and the staff go above and beyond, right, to the point where they do more than they're expected to do. They get awards for doing the work that they're doing, Then you have other managers most managers are somewhere in between. Some are slightly better than others, some are slightly better than average, some are slightly not as good as average. And then there's some down the bottom who are just really, really bad, who instead of actually getting the best out of people, kind of tend to destroy people, and they think they're doing the right thing. And a bit like you were saying about the janitor, people shouting at him, giving out from him, "Oh, you're doing this, you're doing that wrong," but not helping them where, sort of go, "Well, you're doing this right," And actually, it reminds me of a story, right, that I heard there recently about a plant, right? It was a tree, and a fruit tree. And what happened was there was a gardener, an experienced gardener working in this garden for years. He knew all of the plants, he knew all about them, he knew where to plant them, he knew how much shade they needed, how much sun they needed, how much food they needed, how much water they needed. And he knew that if they got too much sun or too little sun, too much water, too little water, if they got too much food or too little food, that they thrived or they barely survived. So he knew everything about the plants. So he was there and he was great. And all of the plants thrived. And a particular tree was there and it always produced lots of fruit. So anyway, he retired and they got a new gardener in. And the new gardener, for one reason or another, the tree stopped bearing fruit. It stopped growing. It just didn't seem to be thriving at all. In fact, it wasn't even surviving. So eventually, after a few years of this, he realized, well, obviously the problem was with the tree. So to cut the tree down, or he went to cut the tree down, sorry, but the owner said, no, look, the tree's there for a long time, just leave it there. There's still birds building nests in it and that sort of thing. So they went, okay, well, I'm not doing anything with it, So they said, okay, fair enough. Anyway, of course, he moved on and they got another gardener. This is a more experienced gardener, came from another place. And he went over and he started, a bit like the first gardener. He went, knew what every plant needed. So he went, he realized, oh, this plant or this tree isn't getting enough food, it's not getting enough water, or it's getting too much at this time and not enough at that time, that sort of thing. So he went in, and before you knew it, the following autumn, it was a big harvest of fruit again.
Yeah.
I suppose to a certain extent, that's a bit like ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
That's a nice metaphor, all right. Yeah. Very good. Yeah.
No, it was just actually
yeah.
No,
that's very good. Very good. Because there was that book. Sorry, the book I'm reading at the moment is really good. It's recommended for the listeners. It's Andrew Carnegie. How to Win Friends and Influence People. It's really, really good. Because there's a part of it that I was reading there the other day, and it's basically saying that how important your name is to you. Like your name is so important. Like for for instance, they gave an example in the book. There's so many examples, but basically what they said was this airline that this couple travel and all, decided traveling for once to see what it was like, because they always took one particular airline the whole time. So they traveled in this airline anyway, and the woman, the air hostess, was so friendly, and she got to know a lot of them, their names, just saying, I'm such and such. What's your name? I hope you're enjoying the flight, and can we do anything for you? Like, and by calling with their first name, and they went home anyway, and they send a review to the airline saying, wow, what an experience this airline. I'll be definitely traveling with this airline from now on, because the strategy, that wasn't a strategy, but it was just something that she always did, was to find out someone's name and how that kind of helped her. So it's something to resonate with people that are listening. It's so important to even. I did try it there. I've always done it myself, but I did it because I was reading the part in the book. I went and did a bit of music last night, and I was talking to a few people, and these are bar staff, and said, "What's your name?" I'm Mark, and funny enough, by saying this guy's name was Stephen, I was just talking through the night. "Oh, Stephen, yeah." At the end of the night, he says, "Great meeting you. Give us a card, and we'll pass your name on." So it just shows you it does work. So it's a good one to think about.
Yeah, there's two actually very interesting things that brought to mind for me. One of which was the strategy of mentioning a person's name. I think it's 5 times, so that it sinks in. So, for example, if you say to me, "Hi, my name is Mark." "Oh, hi, Mark. How are you doing? How long are you here, Mark?" Or "What time did you get here, Mark?" Or "Where are you from, Mark?" And just use the person's name 5 times, so that you're much more likely to remember. And the other one then is that when you do talk to someone, and like you did last night, you built a great rapport with the staff, particularly with Stephen. They say people don't buy products, they buy people. That was something I learned, and I have to say I would agree with that 100%.
Definitely.
I had regular customers when I was in sales, and they did it because it was me, and they would ring me up and tell me there was somebody else in my area, even though there was no areas, there was nothing like that. They would say it, they would tell me, and they would be disgusted with this other person coming into my area, and there was no way that they would deal with this person,
Yeah.
Ultimately,
But,
how people feel as well.
Sorry, say that again, Rich?
Ultimately, how you make someone feel.
Yeah.
That's what they'll remember as well.
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly it. And people don't. They remember some incidents and they remember some things, but overall, generally, remember. Absolutely.
Yeah. And then it's like 90% of people are interested in ourselves, to be honest. A lot of what we can get and but then if you have to turn it around and say, be more interested in the other people want, that's going to come up trumps as well. To be interested in what they want it's obvious stuff,
Yeah, very true.
Yeah, we were also going to discuss on the podcast today around routines. Who would like to start with that?
Well, I suppose we actually kind of covered it a bit. Well, part of it. I was saying about having the processes in place to deal with situations. Like, for example, we did with scouts, that having a routine that means that you can adjust that routine to suit different situations. But there's also, of course, the obvious routines, things like, starting first thing in the morning, and particularly whatever about if you're just one person trying to get yourself out the door or into to do something. If you're a parent, for example, with kids, trying to get having a routine is so very important. And in fact, we were discussing here the three of us, and actually Amanda as well, if you remember. We were talking about how sometimes, quite often, the routine starts the night before. So particularly, whether it's for yourself or not, but even just getting your clothes ready the night before, so that in the morning when you get up, You're just ready to put on your clothes. You don't have to be worrying about, okay, what do I do here, what do I do there. But particularly if you have kids, having things like maybe preparing the lunch the night before, getting your breakfast ready the night before, having the kids' clothes ready for the next day, so that when they get up, their routine can start, and the routine doesn't involve running around looking for this, running around looking for that. It involves knowing where their clothes are, putting them on, knowing where to their school bag is, knowing their books are in the school bag, things like that.
And also, I think that does add up to people's resiliency as well, as what we go on a bit earlier. So if you didn't have that routine with the lads in the tents and got more prepared the night before, they wouldn't have had then the resiliency to carry on that day in that situation they were facing. And so I think the more harder things you put yourself through, as I used to say, is the more you sweat in training, the less you bleed in warfare. So train hard and fight easy, really.
Yeah.
That old adage.
Absolutely, yeah. In fact, we have county final coming up now, Hurling, next Sunday, and we were discussing the other night, what leads to winning the county final. Because last year we won after the first time in 20 years. We actually won the county final, and we're saying that the county final is often, of course, anything can happen on the day. We all appreciate that. We all realize that. But we've put in months and months and months now, hard work into this on the training field. And these are often the finals, the games are won on the training field first, because one of the things we mentioned there is about building camaraderie, building communication, having good communication. Having good communication on the day is key. When we're in drills, doing drills, the one thing they always say is shout the name, shout the name. So whoever you're hitting the ball to, whoever's hitting the ball to you, shout their name, get their attention. Because in the game, there's going to be lots of shouting going on. You want to get their attention, and they want to know who you are, where you are, where to get the ball to. So having great communication like that, with the amount of work you put in, as you said there, sweating on the training field means that it makes it easier on the pitch. Having the skills down pat, having the fitness to keep going. What if things go to injury time? Think you're playing for 60 minutes, next thing it's 70 minutes. Who's going to win in that last 10 minutes? So quite often what we do is we train and train and train and train, and then we play a match when we're absolutely wrecked. And the thing about playing fatigued is it gets your brain and your body ready to play under those circumstances.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's great for anybody that's listening, Fintan, because, for to put the training, as you say as well, Rich, because we're going over to Munich now in October just to do a 10K. And, we probably having a few beers the night before as well, because we're not going to win the thing, but we were just saying to ourselves, we may as well put the training in, feel comfortable doing the 10K, because I run anyway a couple of days a week. But that's great advice on anybody that's listening, to, if you're going to do a race or whatever you're doing sport or football or anything, to what makes you you're happy with that distance when it's running, you're comfortable enough with that distance, you're not killing yourself, because, the worst thing is to be doing anything like I found when I did the marathon the first time and I didn't train properly. What a big mistake. Because you're getting to a certain style and putting that certain part in that race and having to stop and walk was terrible. It was heartbreaking. But I think it's a great point to kind of, we're doing that 10K to kind of feel comfortable in doing that 10K before you go over. It makes sense.
Excuse me. There was I don't know if you ever come across the boxing trainer Ross Enamite. He trained Katie Taylor.
Okay.
Oh, right.
Yeah. And one of his things is, I don't know who said it before him or whether he came up with it, but fatigue makes cowards of us all.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
And if you ever listen to the Jocko podcast as well, when he talks about when he was training SEALs before they went out to Iraq, they would do SEAL team training against one another SEAL team, And that training would be so much harder than what they would experience actually on the battlefield. They were like, wow, this is really easy. Not easy, but damn sight what they were experiencing on the in the training simulations, on the exercises they were actually doing.
Yeah,
that's great.
Yeah,
that's great. So overtrain and you won't be disappointed.
But don't to the point of burnout either.
Mm.
That's another kind of fine balancing as well. But on the other extreme of things, you've got Eddie Izzard even. And he done so many marathons, didn't he? But he didn't train for them. He just kept plodding on and kept going.
That's right, yeah.
I think he did make a comment. If he did train for them, he would have never done
it. That's possible, all right.
Yeah. Like it kind of that's great as well. Like, you know, sometimes the process is better than the goal.
Mm-hmm.
You probably heard that before, you know, because you know when you're getting to it, when you're striving for a goal and you get there, it can be a bit of an anticlimax, you know. But whereas when you're continuing on with the process, it can be better.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah,
destination better than journey. So I've read a few stories of Olympic athletes, and all they ever wanted is that Olympic gold. They've got it, and they've gone disappointed. What's next?
Yeah. But that's it exactly. Yeah, and a lot of people get too focused on the outcome as well. And what happens then is they start to feel, as I mentioned there earlier, lads who are playing a match and the match might be half over, 3/4 over, gone down a couple of goals behind, and they drop the head, right? Because rather than following the process continuously to the end of the game, they're focused on the outcome, and they're thinking, well, we've lost the outcome, we've lost grasp of this, so they're not going to come back from that, you know. And it's awful disappointing because you see fellas then who are half their ability, but they have a lot more heart, you know, and they just continue on. They continue the process. Like once the ball goes out over the line, that's it. It's kick out, start again. Doesn't matter what the score is, you start again. Just keep going and keep the head up, keep watching. Just do your very best until keep at that every single time. Every time you go for the ball, do your best. Get the ball, control the ball, move it on in a smart way or score, whatever the case might be. Or no matter what happens to that ball, once it's gone, it's gone. It's time to start again. So it just reminds me of the story I heard. I think it was Tony Robbins told. I read it in Tony Robbins' book first, but I heard it again there recently about Milton Erickson, who was one of the greatest hypnotists ever, and he was brought in to train American Army snipers. And what happened was he trained them to consider each shot that they took to be their very first shot. Because what would happen is if they took one shot and it was a good shot, then they could end up in a situation where they were feeling overconfident. Or if they took a bad shot, they could like drop the head and just feel less confident. Whereas taking each shot meant that they were given 100% of their resources, 100% of their focus, and 100% of their skill, and not getting caught up in the emotions and everything else that was involved in the shots. So just that one little skill can make a big difference to how you perform in any situation.
That's right. That's right. I think it's Cameron Haynes, his name is. He might have been him on the Joe Rogan podcast, and he was talking about in an archery competition, very similar sort of thing, where he was taking a shot at the target and he was getting really upset with himself that he'd missed the target. And he was either his coach or one of the other competitors said to him, look, once you've released the arrow, it's gone. There's no point in being upset with what's happened. Just concentrate on the next arrow in that center, in that gold ring.
Yeah, that's great advice. Yeah, that's really good, lads. Yeah, really good. Because I had a professional snooker player on my other podcast. I'll give it a plug, Mark's Motivational Podcast. I had I'm gonna say Ronnie O'Sullivan. I wish.
Exactly, was it?
Fergal O'Brien on the podcast there. No offense, Fergal, you're excellent. But if you're listening, but no, he was basically saying that in his sport, they have to be so focused the whole time. You know, just say somebody is winning about 7 frames to nil. Like, you know, that can be really can really affect your mindset. You know, so he was saying that, like, he had somebody a sports psychologist that used to help him, and he was so important. It was so important to kind of get him to focus, not to worry about the other opponent, just focus on your own shot. You know, your next shot, like you said, Rich, about the other guy, about your next archery shot. Don't worry about the last one. So it does make perfect sense. And I hope I might get Fergal on this podcast sometime. Maybe
Oh,
it'd
that'd
be
be
an
good.
interesting one. So
Excellent. Yeah.
stay tuned for that, everybody, in the next maybe couple of podcasts.
Cool. That'd be great.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess it's your own performance that really counts.
Yeah.
Yeah. And to not get caught up in when something goes right or goes wrong. Just forget about that. Learn from it, absolutely, and know what you could do better the next time.
Yeah, because
I apply that. Sorry, Rich, what was that?
I was going to say, giving away your power to someone or something else instead of keeping
Absolutely.
nice, centered, focused, and maybe relaxed thoughts on the next goal, the next objective, or whatever it is you're looking to attain.
Absolutely, yeah, yeah, you're right. And actually, you can have a situation on a pitch where a member of the opposition is trying to rile you, you know, and you can choose how you deal with what they say and what to do. You can fall for it because that's what they're trying to do, put you off your game, or you can just ignore it, you know. And it's up to you who you give the power to, whether you retain that power for yourself or give it to the other person, you know. And like that, whenever I go training, no matter what I do, the one goal I have or is to, by the time I leave there and recover and come back, I've improved from where I was when I started. So whether it's skills or speed or, you know, fitness, whatever it might be, that there is an improvement. That's all I look for from myself. And, it tends to work, you know.
Yeah, that's why even 1% more each time, like.
Absolutely, yeah, yeah. Even if there's only one thing, and what I do sometimes do is I make a mistake, okay, or any number of mistakes. Afterwards, I will go over them, but I won't go over them in a negative way, in a way where I go, "Oh God, how could I do such a stupid thing?" You know, I could do that, but I don't find it useful. What I do find useful is I go home and I have a think about something I did wrong. And I think, well, okay, here I am now. I'm watching this in slow motion. Okay, what will I do this time? I can replay that game, that move. What will I do? Will I hit it this way? Will I hit it that way? What will I do? Maybe if I went to pick up a ball and it took me 2 goals to pick it up, right? How will I get it up in one? You know, have to bend down further. Do I use 2 hands on the stick? Whatever it might be, you know, just something very simple. And once I realize, and I find that tends to work. So the next time I tend to be less likely to make the same mistake. And in a situation as well, of course, you can think quicker, you know, and you have more time thinking, and you're quicker at thinking, so it gives you extra time. And of course, milliseconds make all the difference in any game, you know.
Yeah, no, that's great, because you can you can kind of bring across a lot of things really as well. For instance, somebody that's a musician, a singer, or like an example myself, like sometimes you go to a singer songwriter night and you hear somebody that goes on before you, and they're like, wow, everybody's blown away by them, you know. But
Yeah.
you're thinking, God, why we'll have to go on after this person, but then it's a good thing to think about. Look, everybody is different. Like, even though they're amazing singer, like that's their talent, but then they're not you. You can only go up and do your talent. You can only perform your songs and see how it resonates, irrespective of what they sound like. It could be Pavarotti or something like going before you.
Yeah, well, then you warm up. That's your warm up act, Mark.
Yeah, exactly. Brilliant.
Oh God.
Yeah. No, but it's good. It's good to know you can use this stuff and for a multitude of stuff, isn't it? It's good to know.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I think we'll be going on for nearly 40 minutes now or thereabouts. So we might just finish off soon with a scale on lay, and just remind everybody we have a treat for you next time. The next podcast, I'm going to show you a card trick that I've been learning a bit of card magic there recently. So something that you might be able to use with your friends and at parties and all that kind of stuff. So tune in for that next time.
Excellent. Looking forward to that.
Well, definitely.
Yeah, be good. Yeah. So I think it's my turn to do the old scale and lay this week, is it?
It is for a change, Mark. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. So something I just thought of earlier on. Years back, I was out with a friend of mine. I've always liked music. I've always liked singing and all that kind of stuff. But we were out for a night out, a few drinks, and there was a guy there doing karaoke, and he had all his equipment and all. And I said to my friend, "This looks good. We should try this. It'd be good to get the equipment and give it a go. And we can do it. He said, "Oh yeah, with a few drinks, yeah, that's grand." And I met him about a month or two later, and I was at the buying all the equipment, the speakers, the whole set, and he was saying to me, "Mark, what the heck? We were only saying this as a night out," and I says, "Where are we?"
There he goes.
So let that one sink in. Yeah. So we have another one that what's the other one we were going to someone's going to say today as well.
Yeah.
Rich is going to finish off.
Oh, the question lay.
Question lay.
Question of the day.
Question lay. Yeah.
So I'm just wondering, what little bit can you do to improve maybe your life? If your head is dropping down, or your team's head's dropping down, what's that one little thing that you could do to pick everybody else's head up and yours?
Wow, that's brilliant.
Excellent.
Excellent. That's great. Great stuff.
Thanks very much, guys. That's both brilliant.
Yeah. Now, once again, thanks a million for tuning in to NLP Up Your Skill Your Life podcast with myself, Mark, and Fintan and Rich. What podcast is this? Podcast 7, is it? Or
8?
8.
Number
8.
Well, Mark, you need to go back to school to start counting.
I'll go back. I'll give them a shout tomorrow. But listen, once again, thanks everybody for listening. And then if you have any questions for us, you can send them through to the email nlpupskillyourlife@hotmail.com, and we'd be more than happy to discuss them and give you our opinion on the podcast. So till next time, thanks guys.
Yeah, we can drop them in a YouTube chat.
Yeah, our Facebook page or the YouTube chat.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks very much, everyone, for listening.
Again, lads.
Yeah.
Who's our next guest then, Mark?
Say again.
Who's our next guest?
Well, as I said, I will try and get my friend Fergal O'Brien, the snooker player, and we have a few people in mind as well. We have who else we're talking about the other day?
Well, I suppose we better wait till they say yes first.
Yeah, definitely.
There's a bit of a tease for you.
We have some guy called Lionel Messi. I don't know who he is.
Yeah, he plays hurling for Leach, I think.
I'll give him a shout later and see how he goes.
Yeah.
Right. So
Right.
thanks again, and we'll talk to you real soon.
All right, cheerio.
All right. Thanks, guys. And thanks for listening.